Hello, my lovely learners. This is Learn English with Lewis, the internet's busiest English teacher, and I am wearing the internet's worst jumper. We don't say sweater in the UK, we use jumper. But don't worry, today I have time to give you some pronunciation tips to sound more like a British speaker. Remember, if you are an intermediate student, you can slow the video down and turn on the closed captions so you can read what I am saying. So, how can we sound more British? And what does sounding more British really mean? Now, I imagine many of you think of the Queen when you think of British and the so-called received pronunciation or RP. So this is a particularly posh or upper class kind of accent and pronunciation. And to be honest, it's dying. There are not many people who speak with this kind of pronunciation anymore. So I really recommend that you forget trying to learn the so-called received pronunciation. We do not live in the 1950s anymore. Things move on. More typical now is a kind of standard English. So this is the kind of English that I speak. It's often heard on the radio or the BBC. It's an easy, understandable kind of English, and the accent is not particularly regional or strong, although generally people from the south of England will speak in a similar way to me. So today I'm going to be giving you some pronunciation tips which apply to different accents in the UK, but particularly to a kind of southern British English, which is the way that I speak. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Glottal Tea. So this is the pronunciation of the T in the back of the mouth, so we don't project or have this explosive T sound when we say a T in the middle of a word. So a typical example of this is better. With the glottal T, it would sound better, better. So the sound is almost swallowed and not projected. This is the same for other words with T in the middle, like water, water, or got to, gotta. And you will hear this in London, and it's a very typical feature of the East London accent known as Cockney. Gotta. I've gotta, mate. I've gotta go, mate. Now, this is generally from the southeast, but you will hear this in other parts of the UK as well. If you think of the northern accent, and I apologize for my attempt at the northern accent, this is the kind of accent that you will hear in the Game of Thrones from the north, close to the wall. So people like Jon Snow, for example. Jon Snow will also have a glottal T, like we better get out of here. We better get away from the north where it's too cold. So this is a feature of different accents from different parts of the UK, and it is a really British way to pronounce this. If you go to the USA, this sound often sounds more like a D sound. So in the UK, we would say water or water, and in the USA, it would sound like a D, water, water. So this is a distinctive characteristic of British pronunciation. The next topic I want to talk about is also related to T's, and we call this the elision of T. So this is when we drop the T sound from the end of a word. And I think that this is an even more common feature of British English than the famous glottal T. For example, mate. This is a very British way to refer to a friend. Hello, mate. The T sound will be dropped. So we will say mate. All right, mate. So all right, mate becomes all right, mate. Now, this can happen at the end of a sentence or when we have the T sound followed by another word. So I need to get out of here would be I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. So this dropping of the T is very typical among British speakers of various accents and is something that you will definitely hear in the UK. The final pronunciation tip I want to talk about is the schwa sound. This sound is like a sound and is the most commonly used sound in British English. This sound will be said at the end of words that end in R. So, for example, better, later, and water. In the USA, they will pronounce the R, so it would be better, closer, further. But for the British, it's more of a breathy sound. This can also be heard in fast speech when we replace the letter A with a and other prepositions like of with the or schwa sound. So for example, do you want a cup of tea would become do you want a cup of tea? Do you want a cup of tea? So this cup of tea, in fact, we actually call cups of tea a cuppa. Would you like a cuppa? So this is a very British feature of pronunciation, the schwa sound. So these three things, the glottal T and better, water, the elision of T at the end of a word, so all right mate, and the schwa sound, the I want a cup of tea, I want a cup of tea, are the three very distinctive features of British pronunciation. So I hope these are useful pronunciation tips for you. Please leave a comment and tell me if you have heard these sounds or if you try to use these sounds when you're speaking. Remember, if you would like a one-to-one class with me, you can find me on verbling.com, teachers Lewis, and I have my website learnenglishwithlewis.com where you can find more tips and advice to help you improve your English. I am Learn English with Lewis, the internet's busiest English teacher, and I do have a class to teach right now, so I better get out of here.